A North Carolina trial judge has thrown out the convictions of four men in the 2002 death of basketball star Chris Paul's grandfather. Now, state attorneys are considering their next moves, including an appeal. Tyrone Bowman live. According to ESPN.com, coming out of Winston-Salem, North Carolina. A North Carolina trial judge has thrown out the convictions of four men in the 2002 death of basketball star Chris Paul's grandfather. Now, state attorneys are considering their next moves, including an appeal. Superior Court Judge Robert Brody vacated and dismissed their convictions last week following a January hearing in Frost County. Nathaniel Coffin, Rashawn Denard, Banner Christopher, Levon Bryant, and Jamal Matthew Tolliver had been found guilty in trials in 2004 or 2005. For the killing of Nathaniel Jones, the four were all 14 or 15 years old when they and another teen were arrested. Jones, who was 61, died from a heart attack outside his Winston-Salem home after being tied up, beaten, and robbed. A three-judge panel previously had denied the defendant's innocence claims after testimony in a 2022 hearing. But Brody's order filed Friday cited recanted testimony from a key witness, poor legal representation, and questionable actions by police. The Winston-Salem Journal reported DNA profiles also further served to corroborate defendants' assertions that their confessions were false and that they were not present at the scene of the crime, the judge wrote. Paul Jones's grandson was a standout high school basketball player at the time of the assault and had committed to play at Wake Forest University in Winston-Salem. Paul, who is now 40 years old, is a 12-time NBA All-Star who now plays for the Los Angeles Clippers. Attorney General Jeff Jackson's office, whose lawyers defend criminal cases on appeal, asked the State Court of Appeals on Monday to halt enforcement of Brody's order while we review it and consider next steps. Spokesperson Nazine Ahmad said. Coffin and his brother Banner were convicted of first-degree murder and serving life sentences. Wow, pretty deep. Bryant, Tolliver, and Darrell Brayboy were convicted of second-degree murder and were released after serving prison time. Brayboy was fatally stabbed outside a Winston-Salem supermarket in 2019. Monday's petition by a state attorney said that, without action, Coffin and Banner will be released back into the community without this court having an opportunity to hear and determine the state's issues on appeal. Frost County District Attorney Jim O'Neill criticized Brody's ruling, in particular his dismissals of the cases with prejudice, which would make them harder to appeal. I have never seen that happen before in a court of law, O'Neill said in a statement to the newspaper. Most judges welcome scrutiny and appellate review of their decisions. Well, if the judge has decided that the four young men involved were not guilty of this heinous crime, then why is the prosecutor so upset? Because prosecutors don't like to admit that they're wrong. They never want to concede to anything other than conviction and punishment and conviction and punishment. Lie, cheat, and steal. Fabricate. Do whatever it takes to get that conviction, but get the conviction. It was proven that the police were corrupt. It was proven that there wasn't any DNA evidence that linked the young men to these crimes. And it was further proven that their testimonies were forced or forced confessions. It goes on every day in the court of law. That's not to say that everybody who's accused of something is innocent. But in this instance, the judge agreed that the young men had not done anything wrong. If the General Assembly didn't want judges to have the authority to dismiss with prejudice, they wouldn't have given judges that authority. Muma wrote in an email. They also wouldn't have passed statutes recognizing if charges are dismissed with prejudice, there's no right of appeal. Muma is the executive director of the North Carolina Center on Appeal, on Actual Innocence, a nonprofit that helps investigate and legitimate claims of innocence. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's like a catch-22 situation with these prosecutors. You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. They don't believe anybody's innocent. They believe everybody's guilty. You know how many innocent people right now have been executed and said, oops, we made a mistake. Yeah, well, that doesn't bring the person back from the dead. You already executed them. These young men served time in prison for crimes that they didn't commit. How many of you watching this right now, if you'll be honest, I wish somebody would comment in the comment section. Either you or someone you know, or friends, or relatives, or associates have been a part of the criminal justice system. You know people who were unjustly found guilty of crimes that they didn't do. You all know individuals who were framed and had forced and beaten confessions, like the 4 young men who went to prison in New York City. They were accused of raping the Central Park jogger. Without any scintilla of evidence, the police beat the hell out of those young men and forced confessions. They stayed in prison for years. The young men said they didn't commit the crimes, and the person who committed the crime confessed. New York City had to pay out over $40+ million for something that they should have taken the time to get it right the first time. Let me go to the comment section. Robert says, I don't care. Well, you know what, Robert? I don't care about your comment. How about that one, player? Right back at you. We don't need your sentimentality over here. And just make sure that you or someone that you know in your family don't get caught up unjustly. Because folk will say, well, they don't care. See how that works? All right, y'all. Got to move on. Never surrender. Never quit.